HVAC.com. I know it's a little bit odd to have a favorite member of the House of Representatives, but I do, and that's Justin Amash, who is, if there were like baseball cards of congressmen in the way there are of baseball players, I would have Justin Amash's card for sure. I'd have his rookie card and I'd have it autographed. And just for the record, Justin is the only current member of Congress to whom I have made a campaign contribution. Justin Amash joins us on our VIP line, and when I first invited Justin to be here, the topic was going to be, and we'll still get to it, the border emergency vote. But Justin, I saw your smiling or not so smiling face yesterday in the committee room in that Cohen hearing, so thanks for being here, and what was that like?
Hey, Ross, thanks so much for having me on. It was a wild hearing. It was mostly partisan political theater, but I thought that someone should bring a different tone to the thing, and wanted to ask serious questions of Cohen and see if I could learn something. And I threw him a few questions that I thought were a little more open-ended and would give him an opportunity to speak and speak his mind, and at least one of them stumped him pretty good.
Well, I can think of, so the one that stumped him pretty good, I imagine what you're thinking of is when you asked him what truth he knows that Donald Trump is most afraid of. Is that the one you're thinking of?
Yeah, yep, that's right.
And so I'm kind of curious about, so knowing you, I'm not surprised that you would ask that question. But I wonder if you heard anything from other Republicans or conservative political activists who probably should know better than to try to, nudge Justin Amash by now. But that sounded like a question a Democrat might ask.
Well, I thought about how to frame the question so that we could learn something, and that's the point of the hearing. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you're there at the hearing to learn something. And all my questions were framed in a way that I might learn something new. And, I got a little bit of pushback from some of my Republican colleagues and staff, but it was fine. I told Jim Jordan ahead of time the sort of direction I was going to take, so he knew, and it was all fine.
Right. They'd probably say, that's Justin being Justin. I guess if they say that's, let Trump be Trump, then they got to let Justin be Justin, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So whether regarding your own questions or anybody else's, did you feel like you learned anything yesterday, anything important?
Well, we got some documentation that he was able to present for the first time. We got to see those checks. I think some of this evidence needs to be corroborated. I mean, you don't know necessarily what the checks are for just because checks are presented. So it would be nice to hear from some other people, maybe people who signed the checks, and find out what's going on. I think that was probably the most interesting evidence that was presented.
I really struggle with that whole issue because to me, I guess we're drifting into the cover-up being worse than the crime. To me, if he stooped the porn star and the Playboy bunny, that's between him and his wife. And even the so-called campaign finance violation thing, I think is BS. I think we're massively overregulated in that area, and I'm sure you agree with me on that. But then you start getting to the point of where people are maybe lying to prosecutors or lying on federal forms, and then suddenly something's a problem that maybe shouldn't have been. You think about it in a similar way or not?
Yeah, I have concerns about things like campaign finance laws being used to go after people for political reasons. Campaign finance laws are violated routinely. In our campaign, we do an excellent job making sure that we haven't made any mistakes, but a lot of people are pretty sloppy about them, and they make amendments all the time and all that. And you don't want something that was an honest mistake to be treated as a crime. Now, in this case, you have something that maybe appears to be more deliberate, some deliberate effort to conceal things, and that makes it more serious. But you're right that you have to be careful when you get into this sort of area.
I know this is a very odd situation between a president and his former lawyer. From your position, not as a congressman, but as a lawyer, how much does it bother you, or does it not because of the situation, to hear a lawyer saying this stuff about his former client?
Well, a lawyer can't help a client commit crime. So if there's something that pertains to criminal evidence, I can understand why a lawyer would come forward. So, this is a unique case where you've got the President of the United States and you have a former lawyer, and there are some allegations of criminality. So it's not just a typical lawyer going and spilling confidential information about a client.
Was anything that was said yesterday about that related in any way to Russia something that changed your mind on any of that part of the conversation?
Not really. I think that we still need to learn more about that. It seemed like Cohen himself was not going down that road and didn't really know all that much about it. I think that we'll have to wait to see what Mueller finds out, and maybe the Southern District of New York, and see where that goes. But there was other interesting stuff in the hearing besides Russia.
I've got just 2 minutes left. I want to try to squeeze in two other topics very quickly. You were one of only 13 Republicans who voted for the resolution that was against President Trump's border emergency. And other than you and Massey and I guess Will Hurd, but most of the other Republicans are from blue states, swing districts, and probably did it really for political calculation, which isn't really your style. So, why did you vote? Why did you vote for the resolution?
Yeah, there are a couple others like Sensenbrenner and Gallagher who I think did it for conservative reasons, and maybe some others. They're in red districts, but for me, it's important that we follow the Constitution. We have a system of separation of powers. The legislative branch controls appropriations. And it's not a power that we can delegate to the executive. So even if there's a law on the books that says Congress has delegated this power to the executive branch, we just can't do it. It's not valid as a law. And so I don't think that the president can just claim emergency powers anytime he wants and do whatever he wants. Otherwise, you could just put the whole appropriations power in the executive branch just by having him declare an emergency. You could pass a law that says, hey, anytime the president wants to say there's an emergency, he controls the whole appropriations process. And we all know that would be crazy. So it's crazy if it's for the whole. It's crazy if it's for the part. It doesn't conform to our Constitution. And
I also take quite seriously Nancy Pelosi's not-so-veiled threat about how Democrats will use the emergency power if Trump gets away with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a dangerous precedent. There's talk of other emergencies that have been declared in the past. This is one of the more serious abuses of the power because you're talking about the appropriations power.
All right, my last question for you, Justin Amash. Sock, sock, shoe, shoe, or sock, shoe, sock, shoe?
I put both socks on first and then the shoes.
Yes, as any proper thinking American does. Justin Amash from is yours the 1st district?
No, it's the 3rd district.
3rd district. Okay, Michigan's 3rd district, Grand Rapids and surrounds. In my opinion, the most libertarian member of Congress. And one of the things that I hope you all notice about Justin Amash, if you check him out online, is that on Facebook he explains every vote he casts, which is, as far as I know, unique in Congress, and which I appreciate very much. Justin, thanks so much for being here, as always.
Thanks so much, Ross. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, when we come back, we are going to talk with our good friend Kurt Cambier. A lot of actually interesting stuff going on in the markets, even if the market's a little quiet. Very fascinating. And an event the day after tomorrow where you can meet me if you want to. We'll talk about all of that right after I tell you about